It's 2025 and World War III is still here somehow. After years of promises, setbacks, revivals, and relaunches, the game continues to breathe, barely. In some ways, it's more alive now than it's been in a long time. The developers are pushing updates, new modes have dropped, maps are being added, and they're still trying to steer this thing back on track, but whether or not it's working, and that's where things get complicated. This was a game once hyped as a battlefield killer. It had the right ingredients: gritty modern warfare, large-scale battles, infantry vehicle combat, and maps based on real-world locations like Moscow, Berlin, Warsaw. The pacing was tighter than Battlefield, the gunplay felt heavier, and the loadout system was incredibly granular. On paper, this was the answer to every Battlefield fan who felt burned by EA's shift towards spectacle and away from substance. Fast forward to now, and yeah, the game is still here. It looks better, it runs slightly better, it feels tighter than it did in its messy early access days. Recent updates like Update 1.1 introduced the Stronghold game mode and the new Ruins of Gobi map. The Evergreen Battle Pass rolled out, offering free access to new weapons, strikes, and customization content. They even slashed the file size down by almost half to make it more accessible. That all sounds good, and in isolation, those updates are fine, necessary. But here's the thing, none of it's actually exciting. They aren't making players come back in droves. These are the kinds of updates that keep a game on life support. They don't build momentum, they don't generate hype. The reason people were excited about World War III back in the day wasn't just because it looked cool. It was because it had the potential to be a real alternative to games like Battlefield and Call of Duty. It offered realism without falling into the clunky, hardcore milsim space. You could squad up, coordinate, and actually feel like you were in the middle of a modern conflict. Not an arcade shooter with skins and kill streaks. It had ambition, it had soul, and to be fair, a lot of that is still there under the surface. The shooting mechanics are still some of the best in the genre, tight, weighty, with weapons that sound like they have power behind them. The maps that do exist are well designed and feel like real urban war zones. There's still something oddly compelling about the core gameplay loop when everything clicks. The moment-to-moment play can be immersive, tense, even cinematic in the right conditions, but the cracks are still very much there and they're showing more than ever. For starters, there's the cheating problem. It's everywhere. Despite implementing easy anti-cheat, players are still regularly running into blatant aimbots, wall hacks, and griefers who completely ruin matches. It's not an occasional nuisance, it's a major issue that the devs still haven't managed to get under control. You open recent reviews and that's the first thing people are complaining about. Then there's performance. Even now, even after all these updates, the game still struggles to run well on decent hardware. There are reports of stuttering, weird frame drops, long load times, and just an overall lack of polish that keeps reminding you this is still not a finished product in 2025, years after its original debut. But the most damning issue, content or the lack of it. Aside from the new Gobi map, there's nothing that changes how the game feels on a fundamental level. No new game-changing mechanics, no innovative modes that shake things up, no bold expansions. The Evergreen Battle Pass, for all its polish, feels like recycled material dressed in a new UI. And if you're a returning player who bounced off a year or two ago, you'll come back and find everything more or less the same. It's frustrating because you can see the passion behind it. Wishlist games, now steering the ship, are clearly putting in the effort. They communicate with players, they are rolling out fixes, they haven't given up. And that's rare. Most developers would have pulled the plug by now, but they're still trying. They still believe in it, and that belief is part of why players are still talking about World War III. The game refuses to die. There's still a community, even if it's smaller. There's still a niche audience who want this to succeed, not because it's perfect, but because the genre needs it. Battlefield isn't what it used to be. Call of Duty's headed down a very different road, and tactical shooters that sit in the sweet spot between arcade and milsim are rare. And here's the kicker, the potential is still massive. The game already has a strong foundation, it just needs a real push. The maps are one of its biggest strengths. They're grounded, atmospheric, and detailed. Locations like Berlin and Warsaw don't just feel like battle arenas, they feel like real places that could be the backdrop of an actual conflict. And with the right level of content support, new maps, dynamic weather systems, destructibility, these spaces could be elevated into something truly memorable. Vehicles too are completely underutilized. Tanks, APCs, drones, they exist, they function, but they don't play nearly as big a role as they should. There's an entire layer of strategy just waiting to be tapped into. Imagine a larger scale push mode where vehicle convoys need to be defended or ambushed. Imagine combined arms gameplay that actually lives up to its promise, with infantry and armor working together instead of feeling like separate pieces jammed onto the same map. The bones are good, the systems are mostly there. What's missing is that layer of innovation, of vision, of momentum. The game doesn't need more tiny patches, it needs a campaign, a message. It needs to declare what it wants to be and then chase that full force. So where does that leave World War III in 2025? It's a game stuck between two identities. It has the foundation to be something great, a real alternative to the mainstream, a grounded shooter that values teamwork, positioning, and strategic play, but it's being held back by a lack of resources, a lack of momentum, and a content pipeline that's moving way too slowly. One thing we rarely talk about with World War III is its absurd depth in weapon modding, and how that depth is both a blessing and a curse in 2025. On the one hand, the gunsmith system still embarrasses just about every other FPS on the market. You can swap barrels, stocks, foregrips, muzzle devices, rails, optics, lasers. Every tweak shows up in first person and actually changes recoil, ADS speed, or velocity. It's hyper granular in a way Battlefield has never managed. The flip side, the progression curve is still glacial. If you're a new player today, unlocking the meta attachments can feel like a second job. The devs keep promising a streamlined grind, but right now the curve hasn't shifted much since launch. That means newcomers are still spawning with bare bones kits, while veterans beam them with tuned setups that took 200 hours to finish. Ballistics deserve a mention too, because damage model is closer to ARMA than Call of Duty. Rounds have velocity drop and armor penetration values. There's even a rudimentary material system, plaster, Kevlar, steel under the hood. When the netcode behaves, it's satisfying to land a 300-meter shot and hear that distinct crack echo of a concrete wall before the kill feed confirms it. For a game selling itself on realism, those flinch teleport deaths undercut the fantasy fast, and audio has quietly become one of the sleeper strengths. Since the 1.1 update, they've rolled out occlusion filters that make urban maps feel claustrophobic, shots whip past, concrete absorbs high frequencies, metal stairwells ring like church bells. If you're a new player, it might be worth checking out just to see what could have been. If you're a returning player, you'll probably notice the improvements, but also realize that not much has changed. It's better, sure, but better doesn't mean great. It doesn't even mean good enough, depending on your standards. World War III in 2025 is a game that could have been a leader, but right now it's barely a contender. It needs more than just updates, it needs a spark. Until that happens, it's going to remain a game full of potential, caught in this endless cycle of almost.